Yay! Hi!
Hello.
Welcome to Regardless, baby. I'm so excited to have you here. And seriously, I feel like we've been talking about having you on for forever now, and we're finally making it happen, babes.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. We have so many great conversations. So now we're basically just filming it and documenting it. Nothing really different.
It's kind of crazy, like how we first met.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, so bad.
Like, oh, she's cool. She's going to be nice.
Dude.
I was like, great.
We have to tell them what I did.
Can you guys guess what she did?
Like, literally so bad. It was Halloween, right?
Yeah.
And all of the girls were dressing up as Barbies. And I'm like, I literally do not want to be a Barbie for Halloween. Like, I have to be one every single day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I love dressing up as a guy. Sounds really weird, but it's like, fun not to be me.
Yeah, of course. That's the whole point, is to be like
it's fun.
do something different.
Yeah. And so, of course, like, I showed up to the party. All of my girlfriends thought I was going to be a Barbie with them.
Oh,
And
they didn't know?
No, they had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes it so much better.
So I literally walked in as Ken.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it was like, honestly, it like made the night. Like,
yes,
if we're laughing, then it's a good time.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's how we first met.
But yeah, so I walk into this party and this girl is dressed as Ken from Barbie, and I'm like, I like you.
Yeah, like, immediately
I was like,
connected.
okay, cool. I was like, this is. So I met you blonde with short hair.
I love it.
Yeah, it was
I love
great.
it. But anyways, I'm so excited that we're here. And just to introduce you, because you deserve the best introduction ever, Kaylin Mally, she's amazing. She's a content creator and she's doing amazing things for her community. She's leading people and helping them level up mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And you are also absolutely crushing the UGC game.
Oh, thank you.
So I really look up to you, babe. I think it's so tremendously hard to be an entrepreneur, a content creator, and really like rely on yourself as a woman and make shit happen. So props to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. It's definitely a very interesting world,
Yeah.
the entrepreneur or just freelance world. I think it's glamorized in so many ways.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like it is amazing in so many ways. I would never have it any other way. But people don't talk about like the lack of stability. Like it's
God.
crazy in the way that you're constantly having to search and feel like you're in a place of chasing. So it's really interesting trying to navigate being like the trust in like a higher power of whatever you believe in, to be like my timing, my plan, like it's all good. Because you want to be like, okay, what's happening next? What's happening next? And you can't. It's really hard to even appreciate what's currently going on, because you're like, okay, well, what about in the next month, you know? And I feel like you probably experience that in some ways, whether it's with this podcast or with other things that you do. So it's definitely an interesting world, but I love it.
I'm so proud of you and so correct what you just said. It's really scary. And I feel like, especially being an entrepreneur, like you're always kind of in, especially from my experience, like fight or flight.
Yes.
Like not knowing what's coming up next, because ultimately, like, we can control some things, but a lot of things aren't in our control.
No. I realize like almost nothing is, but we have control of how we like respond to it and how we react to all those different things. So I'm like, I kind of get to choose how this is gonna go in a lot of ways, and really perspective just changes everything.
I agree.
Even when you don't feel like or don't have control at all.
When did you start to like realize how important like this aspect of like self-growth is? Like, did you have like an aha moment?
I've always been naturally driven as a kid.
Yeah,
like I've definitely always, people are always like,
It's in you.
If people are like, where's your discipline from? I'm like, no, I was a weird ass kid. Like my parents were like, it's actually funny. There's so many other things that I could like go on for hours about. But one thing specifically was, apparently when I was like 15, I've literally lived 100 lives, I feel like, because I like started out wanting to be a veterinarian and like played soccer, total tomboy, then switched over to dance and acting, all these things. And I'm from Kansas City, and
I didn't know that about you.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, like I literally
Totally
was like
different dimension about you, just like opened up. Super cool.
I like was like competitive soccer player and got burnt out by age 11 because I was traveling weird. I was just like, I don't even know. Jumped into the whole modeling entertainment world through books. So through like the dystopian future novels, all those different things, I loved them. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to be Katniss Everdeen, Trish from Divergent. Like that was the whole goal. And that's why I moved out to LA initially. And so when I was 15, that was when I was like kind of in my whole, I want to move to LA, I want to do all this different stuff. And my mom said that I had written them a letter about why I wanted to move, all these different things. And I would do a bunch of weird stuff like that. And when she got that letter and her and my dad read it, they said to each other, they're like, okay, she's going to have to be raised very differently than how I guess we've thought you typically would for a kid in terms of like independence and different things like that, and just like a different level of, I guess, drive. So that discipline has always been there. And then I moved out to LA when I was 17 by myself, which is a lot. So it ages you very, very quickly, and you learn a lot of stuff and you see a lot of parts of things that you probably wouldn't normally see at that age. And so that forced me to grow up. But also during all that time, I started to have a lot of like health issues and hormone issues. And so it was really through that journey that I fell a lot more deep into self-development. Because I actually, since like mid high school, I fell more into like ED stuff, like dealing with, and then that like spiraled into hormone issues, like all these different things, doctors trying to put me on birth control, that making things worse. And then I was also moving out to a new city, so I'm sure that added stress as well, and all these different things that went on for years, and doctors telling me like this is impossible and that is impossible. And then I finally like had hit a breaking point, and my mom like was doing research from like Kansas City trying to figure out like how to help me, which I'm very grateful for that as well. My parents they're like your silent supporters a little bit in a way, only because I'm like, can you please be quiet? I'm like, can you please? Especially my mom. I'm like, I love you and I'm so grateful for everything you do. But sometimes I'm like, oh my God.
Shut up.
I'm like, you're great. But I'm like, I just like, I'm someone that I'm such a space person sometimes too, which I think can be hard when the other person receiving is like, I'm not a space person. I'm like, I don't know what to do. That's a side note. But so I had found a health coach to kind of start to help working with me. And she was the one that was like, hey, your body doesn't know the difference between physical and mental stress. You've got to figure something out. She's like, if you want to be able to live the lifestyle that you live, have this fast-paced thing, if you want to be able to work out, like do all these different things, she's like, you have to get your mental stress under control. And that was when I dove into spirituality, started looking at like the power of the mind, subconscious shifting, like all of that stuff that some people are like, that's woo-woo-wee. I'm like, that's science-based. Like there's so many different things. And through that whole thing, I healed myself naturally. I got a lot of the things that I like visualized, all that kind of stuff. So that really took off when I was almost forced with an obstacle. And the only way to heal from it was changing the way I looked at life.
Babe, props to you for like looking at the issue and actually sitting with those emotions and like taking action to change, because a lot of people are scared of that.
Yeah, thank you.
It takes a lot of drive.
Well, and it took a long time. It's like, I think people want like a super quick solution. It's like, it's not. It's like I'm now on year like 8 of my fitness, health, wellness journey. And it's really interesting too, because going back to the whole acting thing, I don't do acting anymore, but I moved out to LA for acting. And a big reason for that, and I had talked about this on another podcast, was I look back now and I'm like, I think I liked escaping my own life. Like I didn't always love myself or love the life that I had and stuff. So it was fun for me to dive into different characters and do these different things. And then as I started to heal, I was like, wait, I love me and I love my life and I love like the ability that I have to create my own thing. Like I don't have to like run away into different stories. And then that's when I started doing more social media and sharing my life, or sharing like a character, adopting a character's life, which is like an interesting parallel.
That's powerful. It's so interesting. Just before you got here, I had on like another guest speaker, and he just shared that he like stopped mood boarding because it was other people's realities. And he just kind of used his imagination and like started to figure out that for himself. But it's so true. Like I feel like we're always trying to escape, whether it's digesting as much content as possible or distracting ourselves from what's actually like going on here. And that's beautiful. Like amazing.
Thank you.
And I think I want to like kind of go into a little bit like this concept of letting go. And I know like everyone listening who is a fan of you and has been following everything beautiful and juicy going on in your personal and love life, I just like want to be real with you for a sec, because I think a lot of times in relationships, you know, we see social media and we're like, oh, they're perfect. Everything's fine. She's so happy. Like once I get into a relationship, everything will be perfect. Like, no. And like, ultimately, if you don't love yourself and are comfortable with yourself, nothing will ever work. Because the reality isn't a big thing that I had to learn. For people that like don't know, my boyfriend and I
have the craziest relationship story, which is honestly like we're in such a good place now, but it's made it like so worth it. Like over the past few months, I've just been like, whoa, like this is so cool. And so I don't exactly remember where I was going with this, but in terms of the like letting go aspect, it's like if you are not comfortable on your own fully, it makes it really hard to navigate like when like why you're doing certain things and like who you're doing them for and things like that.
It's like just interesting looking at this like concept of letting go. I mean, it seems like before you got into a relationship with Lawrence, like you had the freaking time to be single. And like do the inner work.
Yes. Well, and I'll before we go any further, people would so I was single my whole life, and I've always just been like, I want this and I don't want anything else. I want this and I don't want anything else. Like when I can see what I want, I like know what it is. And if it doesn't even feel close to right, I'm like, because that other thing that I want, I know is there. Like you can always feel when it's like slightly off. And so I just would never be able to settle for something that I like didn't want. Like people in high school would be in relationships and I'm like, there's just not somebody that I like, it just isn't. I'm like, it's just, I almost it didn't make sense to me. And as I started to get like a little bit older and I'm still not that old. I'm 23.
You're a
like,
baby.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
girl.
But it's funny because when you're like 20, you don't think that, right? And I was like, I don't know if I'm like, if I will ever really find this person, you know, like I don't know. I'm like, am I too picky? Am I these different things? Because I would have like a list of the things that I want, all these different things, you know, and people talk about that. And I was kind of like, okay, but then I was like, no. And this came back to like all the different work that I was doing and stuff. So I was like, no, I really, no, this person's out there. Of course they are. Cause like if I want this thing, like someone else must want me, like these kind of different things. And so when I dove into a lot of my like work, cause I was in like the nightlife scene a little bit. And that's where I was like, hey, this isn't really my world anymore. I need to get out of here. And so I would actually like visualize not just like the things I wanted, but also the type of relationship I wanted. And at first, as someone that was really independent, I almost didn't want to do that because I felt like my ego was kind of like, you don't need a man. And I was like, it's not about needing a man. Like you can want one and that's okay. And I was holding on to so many different like identity things of being like, oh, but I'm like the single one. Like I'm the one that doesn't ever need a man's help, like doesn't need any of these different things. So I almost had a hard time even vocalizing that it was something that I wanted. And so once I was like, no, I think I do want a relationship. And then I would like this is what I was like more a spiritual TikTok account. So I would like post different like mood boards of things of like having a relationship and all these different things. And then within a few months of doing all that stuff, I even would write letters to my future partner. And I like would write out the things that I wanted, things like that. In a few months, I actually met Lawrence.
Kaylin.
It was crazy.
Wow. You know what's really cool about that is, first of all, I think you realize like some of your inner dating dialogue and like ways that you were maybe self-sabotaging to like protect yourself, which is like a huge part of dating and why I think a lot of people are unable to find or keep love. And first of all, you did that, like you were self-aware to see that. And then I think another aspect of this is like you were so bold about like what you were wanting and communicating that to the universe and also like stepping into that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you still don't have to feel bad about wanting a relationship.
No. And the other thing too, though, is people make these lists and totally forget about themselves. They're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I go, okay, first of all, are you even the person that person would want? And that was huge for me because this was like even, I remember my mom, because I was like, I would like go out to the clubs on weekends every now and then. She's like, do you ever like meet any guys? And I'm like, I would never date a guy that goes to the club. And she goes, well, then why are you? And I was like, whoa. I'm like, that actually, cool. That hit hard. And I'm like, okay. I was like, actually, you made a very good point, Mom. I was like, okay, yeah. And so I took that and kind of brought that into everything else I was doing. But in not just a relationship, but with anything. And so the biggest thing is if you ever want anything in life, whether it's a job, a person, it's like you have to become the person that's capable of getting that. It's not just like oh, well, I want this, I'm going to write it all down and they're going to come to me. It's like, no, like you have to be the person that they want that matches that energetically. Otherwise, you would never be in the place to even meet that person to begin with.
I love this. It's almost like you have to become what you want to attract.
Yes.
And one of the things that really helped me before I was manifesting the relationship that I'm in now was like sitting down and instead of like focusing on like a wish list or like pros or whatever it may be, it's like, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
when I'm with this person. And I think that like energy like speaks the loudest. And it's not that like you're making it about the other person. It's almost like, what is the energy that we want to share? How do I want to feel? Do I want to feel safe, seen, understood? And it seems like you were so clear on that picture.
Yeah.
That like it just opened the doors to him.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because the two things. One is that like I very similar to the feeling thing, because more than anything, it doesn't matter if you visualize, doesn't matter if you write, read, whatever you do, if you do not feel the feelings of what it would be like to be in that position, whether it's a relationship or a job or whatever, it's not really beneficial. So all of those things are just tools to put you in the feeling and vibration of having that thing essentially. And so I remember something I would do, which is like so cheesy to like admit almost, but like I would at night when I was in bed, I would like lay there and I would be like, almost like imagine that you're kind of like next to someone.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's like so silly, but it's like their feeling of like warmth, like that truly is like opening yourself to being like, I'm ready to receive and have this thing. And then also being like, relationship takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment. If you do not give yourself time before that relationship starts, you're never going to make space for it. So it's like once I started changing my friend group, doing different things, it was like, well, all of a sudden I had a lot of downtime, which made space for also him to come in that way. So there's so many moving parts that I feel like people don't realize. And of course, some people, you just can meet them out and about and things like that. But when you're being really intentional about it, there is all these different things that you can do to kind of help with that. And then it can get even more complicated, because then it's also like, but not obsessing over the need to have it. It's just like a want that's there.
Absolutely.
And a knowingness that that thing is already yours. It's just not here yet. Versus like operating out of a place of desperation. And I think that's where people get a
tripped
little
up.
mixed. Yeah. And like a great example of this too is like the timing of everything really is so perfect. Because I don't know if you know this, but Lawrence and I were supposed to have met like 2 years before that.
What?
Yeah. Oh, have you
No.
not heard the story? Oh my God. You're
Wait, where?
Okay, strap in, because
I'm strapped, baby.
So
let's go.
People here too are people love stories like this.
I love it.
Posted it on TikTok and actually did very well. And everyone I tell is like, that's so crazy. So we met in August 2022. But I used to work for a social media group called Smile Squad. We made these like lighthearted comedy skits. It was
Wait, cute.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still cringy.
Yeah. Like,
we love cringe.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like, honestly, it helped me so much in so many ways.
Yeah.
So like, it was a great first job coming out here. But I worked primarily on the skit side, so I would like hire actors.
So fun.
I would like act in the little skits. Yeah, it was just like a super casual. I'd get props, like all these fun little things. And so as they were growing, they wanted to start doing like different vlogs where they would go out and go into public and ask people to do like random things, whatever. And so I didn't really work on that side, but I obviously was friends with all the people because it was a super small team. And so they went out and did this skit down in, I cannot believe I haven't told you this.
No.
They went out and did this skit, and because there's like multiple things. We go out and do this skit, or they do, or not skit, sorry, vlog in Santa Monica. And it was like putting makeup on a bodybuilder. And so
was it Lauren?
Yeah,
Shut the fuck. Sorry, shut up. Dude, what?
I'm like nervous talking, not nervous, but I get, like,
I'm getting hot.
No, I am too.
Did you touch his like body? Or
no, I wasn't there. No, wait.
No. Getting confused. Sorry. No, getting a little lost in the story.
No, I am too. I'm like.
I'm getting fluttered now.
Okay.
We're good.
I'm like, it's also like just like it's hot
also
here.
hot
It's also
balls
really
in here.
It's really hot. No, so one of my good friends' name was Aphomia, and she was on set that day. And so they're basically walking around this beach. They see Lawrence. No one knows who he is, right? And they're like, hey, can we put makeup on you for this video and like film you working out? And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. She gets back. I haven't heard about any of this. And she goes, oh my God, I met this guy. You guys would be perfect for each other. Do you want me to like set you guys up? And I literally go, no, I don't want that right now. Like, I was like, it was just like funny,
timing,
you know?
dude.
Yeah. And so I go about my life. I think like 3-ish months later, we were casting a skit called What It's Like to Have a Hot Boyfriend. And everyone on the team was like, oh, the guy that we did the vlog for would be perfect for this. We can give you his number, and we can give you his number, and you can text him to see if he'd be interested. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. So I texted him, was like, hey, you want to be down to do this? And he was like, yeah, sure, totally. I was going to be on set that day to film like 3 skits. He cancels the day before because he had COVID. Turns out he was lying.
Dude.
But it worked out good because thank God we didn't
thank
meet.
God.
Yeah, and
The
so
universe has a bigger plan, you guys.
and so we would have met that day, but we didn't. I hired a new actor, thought nothing of it,
Yeah.
and just like I was on set with the new actor, did our thing, left. Then like a year later, I go to Motion, and I was like, God, that guy looks really familiar. But at the time, he had really long hair, and then he had just cut it a little bit shorter.
Yep.
And so throughout the whole workout, I was like, where do I know you from? Because I never met him, but like I'd seen his photo before from the video.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my God, it's from like the Motion. I was like, it's from the Smile Squad video. So afterwards, I was like, and just like I wasn't like, oh my God, like, it was just like so casual. And I was like, were you in? Like, did you work with these people? And he's like, yeah. I was like, I used to work for them. He was like, oh, no way. And so we started talking from there. And then he ended up DMing me. I didn't even know I went on a first date with this guy.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, that's funny.
But it's kind of crazy to see like the journey and the story of it all. Like you never know.
No.
I always like tell my girlfriends, like, you've no idea who's going to come back into your life, because like I had a very similar story with my boyfriend, which is for another day.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's a reason and like trust in the timing. And I think this is so interesting because I think it ties back into this like concept of like letting go of things that we don't have control over and just like trusting and surrendering to that. And I think that's like exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And like, it's beautiful.
Well, and then it's cool too to see, because that happened. And the first time we had texted each other ever, we still had our old text string of me asking him to be like, and what it's like to have a hot boyfriend skit. And then now we're like dating. So it's just funny. But it is then a similar thing that happened later, because we went through multiple breakups. They were like mini breakups. I think one lasted like a week. A lot of external things that we didn't want to break up. And then as we got towards that third one, we were both like, no, we're done. And at that point I was like, I just really need to like let you go, and like we kind of need to like do our own thing. And again, I think it comes back to a lot of just trusting and being like, what's meant for me will never pass me. And it's like, I truly, when that third breakup
That's
came,
a lot.
and the thing is, it sounds silly, but it's like, until you're in it, like it's totally different. Everyone's situation is so different too. But that third one, I was like, okay, this is just, you've tried so many times at a certain point. And I think that's when you're like, we've both tried everything. We just kind of need to like go our separate ways essentially. And then being like, what's meant for me will never pass me, meaning that knowing that regardless, this isn't working. So if I let him go, we'll grow and come back together and be the best versions of ourselves, or we'll grow apart. But the thing is like, people are so scared of the growing apart part. But I'm like, once you do grow, you will no longer miss that person, because they'll no longer be meant for you. And if they are meant for you, you guys will meet back in a little circle and like you'll come back to each other, which for me is what happened. And I love that that's what happened, but I can't promise that that's what will happen for everyone. But I can promise that it'll be the best solution possible. Like whichever it is, it's still great and the best one for you, even if it doesn't feel like it in that exact moment.
Gosh, this is so hard. This is like pulling at my heartstrings, like talking about it.
Yeah.
Because like the emotional journey and experience of like getting together, breaking up, like doing it rinse and repeat is like so freaking painful.
It's exhausting.
And especially like being in our 20s. We were just talking about this off camera, but like 1 to 2 years of like age difference, or just like being 21 to age 24 or 24 to age 28 is like
so
decades
much.
of growth.
Yeah.
And so like being in a relationship in your 20s and growing together, dude,
It's hard.
that's fucking hard.
Yeah. Well, and I truly think, and me and him have talked about it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like what happened in our relationship and the situations we went through truly turned us from like girl and boy to man and woman.
Yeah, babe.
And I feel so grateful that we got to be able to like do that together, and we definitely changed for one another. And I think so many people I just think like people give up so quickly today, and I think there's a lot of right times to do that, but I think there's a lot of understanding a relationship, as much as you need to know who you are and do all this inner work and all these different things, it's also like when you are merging lives and you think you're like, I think I could do life with this person, there's sacrifices on both ends, and you're changing for them just as much as they're changing for you. And that's not a bad thing. Like I saw someone talk about how a lot of times it's the same cycle where you first meet someone and everything's really exciting and everything's really perfect, because all I see in you is the great things, all the things we agree upon, all the things that we can, it's the honeymoon phase. And then after time passes, and for some people that's 3 months, for some people it's a year, like it just depends. Our circumstances threw us right into that within like a month and a half in our relationship. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm seeing all like the parts of you that we don't agree on, and all the things that like aren't so perfect and amazing. And then at that point you have to choose to either one of you changes for the other person essentially, or you also accept that there's parts of that person that may never change. And then you learn to love all of those parts of a person, just like you learn. It's easy for you to do self-love on all the things that are great about you, but essentially you basically eventually have to accept all the parts of you that aren't as great about you. You have to learn to do that for another person.
Absolutely.
And that's not easy to do. And so most people just go, okay, we disagree, this isn't going to work, let's move on. So then they go and date someone else, and the first few months are amazing again, and then it falls apart. It's a cycle, and it keeps going and going and going. And a lot of it's also about finding someone that's really willing to work through that with you, because there's not a lot of, not just guys, but also girls that don't want to do the work anymore. And it's like, it's so easy too with social media to just be like, oh, something's better, and something's better. And like, it's all it's not real. Like, none of it's real. So when you find someone that's willing to communicate with you and
fight for you.
Yeah, and fight for you and talk openly about their emotions and feelings, go run with each other and like make that work. And of course, that doesn't mean things aren't going to come up and it's not going to work out in other ways. And I would never prevent or what's the word I'm looking for? Encourage.
Yes.
Yeah, English, hello. Encourage someone to stay in a relationship and be like, oh, we can work through it, and they cheated on you. Like, no, if they cheat on you, leave.
Yes.
Like, there's things that it's like unacceptable behavior, but the basis of being like, things aren't going to be perfect, and you have to learn how to work through each other's imperfections together.
Babe, this is so true, and people need to hear this.
Yeah, it's rough.
I'm curious to like understand more from your perspective. Like, how did you, I guess, navigate the turmoil of the relationship, or not turmoil, like just the uncertainty and the hardships, like alone first? Because like you have to kind of navigate some of that by yourself and get your stuff right before communicating to the other person. And then kind of like like, how did you guys come together and like hold space for one another, but like also communicate to understand versus being understood? And I know that's just like a 2-part question, but it is really interesting to get into like the details of it all.
Yeah, I feel like for each situation it's different. And I think also, as you say, like as we grow and change, the way we process information changes too. And I'm still working on this, where it's like I can be very reactive, where it's like the second I don't think I like something, I'm like, wait, blah, 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 blah. And then I've noticed as I've gotten older, I've almost gone the opposite way, where sometimes I'll shut down a little bit. And so I think for myself, it's more just being aware first before I go, okay, what is he doing wrong? I'll also be like, why do I not like this? Like, why is it bothering me? Versus being like, just don't do this. It's like, it might actually not be something he needs to change. It might be something that like I need to sit on and reflect on, being like, this is triggering me because of something that happened from so long ago that I don't know about. And I think a lot of that is the shadow work and the understanding. And a lot of the way we were able to come back together is because we both were willing to reflect on our own. So it wasn't, and I think a lot of, I'm assuming you have like a bigger girl audience. I think a lot of times it's frustrating because we feel like we're always the ones like doing all the reflection and being like, hey, I'm taking ownership of this. But then the guys don't take ownership of everything. And of course not in every relationship. But I feel like that does happen a lot. And I was very fortunate that Lawrence is very reflective as well, and very willing to be like, the main part of it is his morals and values are just very good. So he's willing to be like, what do I need to do to be a better man? And then also it's the question of being like, what do I need to do to be a better woman? And not just a better woman, but also a woman for him and a man for me. And those are different for each person. And so it's about like really like understanding what the other person needs, taking that time to reflect, and then coming back and talking to them and just being so honest about how you feel. And so I struggled so much, especially at the beginning of our relationship, with talking about my feelings. Like, I was the most unvulnerable human being on earth, and it would almost make him frustrated because he'd be like, you don't, like, he's like, I can't tell, like, do you love me? Like, do you, like, it's just I wouldn't know how to express my feelings, essentially.
Or speak your truth.
Yeah, no. And so not just when it came to being like lovey, and because I was never really touchy, like all these different things when we first started dating.
So I wouldn't
know.
expect that about you.
No, it's crazy. And like the thing is, he doesn't either, because I'm like, yeah, because I am super touchy. I'm super touchy with you. But like my parents were always like the most, I was like cold, like ice princess.
What?
Cold. Oh my God. Yeah. Like super cold, never wanted kids. And it's crazy because that all changed when I started dating him. But I like first met him was like, I was 21. And so I was like, I could live in New York. I could be single my whole life. I'd never have kids. That's fine with me. And now I'm like, actually, I'm good to like not work. I'm good to like have kids, live on an island. Like, me
too, girl.
I'm like, I'm chilling.
Me too.
But that took also having someone that was willing to stick around and let me open up in the first place, that allowed me to start being able to have those different things. And I am talking mainly about myself because that's where I can speak from.
Yeah,
but like,
absolutely.
I know he's also had a lot of things on his side where he's experienced things that I've helped him like open up to. And like I kind of went off on a bunch of different tangents.
No,
there.
this is beautiful.
But when it comes to just being able to reconnect and talk about those conversations, not only being touchy and lovable, I also struggle to be like, I don't like when you do this, or I don't appreciate this. Like, I wouldn't know how to go about those conversations because I would almost feel like embarrassed that something made me upset. Like, I used to be so nothing can hurt me, you know, like guard up, like I don't care what you do, I don't care about this. And now I'm so much more like for both of us, anytime even the smallest thing bothers us, we'll be like, hey, like I didn't like this, like when you did this, or I didn't like how this went down. Can you do this next time? Or can you tell me like why? Like, it's just a lot of talking.
It's a lot of talking.
It's a lot of talking. There's never less.
It's not easy
No.
at all. And I think it's so interesting because I think people are like, oh my gosh, I just want a relationship. And we kind of think that once we're in a relationship, it's like all rainbows and sunshines.
No.
And it's like, no. Like, it just begins. Like, the work heightens.
Literally, your relationship is a mirror into you.
Yep.
A mirror, and it will tell you everything
everything
fast.
like you didn't even think was there.
Yeah,
and
no.
shit's coming up.
Yeah, and the amount of things where I was like, it's his fault, and then you take this and you're like, oh wait, this might actually be my fault.
But the fact that you're able to that you're that self-aware to like understand that it's triggering things within you, and the fact that he's also able to do that, goodness gracious, like for all of our women listening, like men are beautiful. Men have emotions. Men are not robots.
No.
Like, they have hearts. They're sensitive. Like, I think there's a lot of sad vocabulary and language around men, and that's just not really true.
No, and they're so emotional.
They are.
But in like a totally different way.
Yes.
And so it's like, and that's where even now I'll be like, because I still don't always fully know. So I'll be like, do you want an answer, or do you want to be like, do you want to be just like hugged right now? You know? I think girls forget that it's like sometimes guys just want to hug too. And then that sometimes like, and just also like not changing, like, because I think they still want to be respected, right? And they still want to know that like they're like, they feel that like dominance in a sense. And I guess everyone's relationship dynamic is different, but I'm like,
no.
Yeah. And so I think just having that, and then also not like looking at them as less, like still understanding that you're like you're grateful for everything that they do, and you still like have like, you really respect them and are proud of them. You can then give them the space to be able to be like, I feel this way, or I want to talk to you about this, things like that. I think there's a way that we can also help them feel more willing to open up in that way, because I think a lot of times guys end up opening up and then they get hurt and they have a really bad experience with it, and then that's why they're like, I don't ever want to do it again. Like, if I'm not perfect, if I'm not like on it all the time, then they're gonna get like mad and run away or do whatever. And like, I'm guilty of it. I think we all do it, because and the other thing too is I actually just recently had a conversation with him, is I've noticed that a lot of times my emotions outpower his.
That's an interesting thought.
And it's like, and I was like, I'm sorry, because it's not fair. And I'm like, and we're like, was trying to have a conversation like, how do we navigate this? What do we want to do? Because it's like, I'll get so emotional so quickly, and then it'll almost force him to come into the driver's seat to be like, hey, it's okay, like blah blah whatever. But like, sometimes he was also upset, but just because his emotions didn't get so big, that he's like now the one that has to go into the seat of like being like, oh, it's fine. And so it's like, how can I also try and regulate, not have emotions, but just regulate them a little bit more so his don't get completely overlooked too.
That's super interesting. And it kind of reminds me of this post I saw. I think it was like Mel Robbins, but she was
I
saying,
love her.
I love her to
Yeah.
death. Oh my God, Mel, love you. Maybe it wasn't her. Anyways, shout out to Mel.
Actually,
Now I'm like freaking
Side note,
out.
Mel.
Yeah.
It wasn't Mel. Sorry, we did not quote you on that.
I can't remember. It may have been Brene Brown.
I don't know.
One of the amazing
Someone.
women who are just crushing it in the world for us. But I remember this person said that like a partnership relationship is all about like having percentages, right? Like
Yeah.
if today I'm coming in with like a 20%, then that partner can be my 80%.
Yes.
Or if I'm coming in as like a 60%, then the other person can fill in the rest. And it's all about like, it changes on a daily basis. And I think it's just about pulse checking. I think it's about being like radically honest about what's going on and like speaking your truth with your partner and just speaking for the relationship.
Yes.
Not to be heard or be right or be correct. Like it's for the relationship. And again, like I just snaps and hats off to you and Lawrence because it's so beautiful just to see your evolvement together. And like that one post that went freaking viral.
Oh yeah.
Like, do you want to share a little bit about that? Like that's so cool.
Well, so it's basically, I don't know. I don't know if are you putting it up on the screen? Or,
I don't know.
Okay, go look at my Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know how this works, but basically
Maybe.
it's a clip from when we first started dating,
Yeah.
and then it switches to a clip of us now, basically. And I don't remember exactly what the text said, but it was like, actually I'll look
Look it up.
I don't remember, but I do know that the caption I put, and I saw this quote and I was like, oh, that hits so home for me. It was, to love someone long term is to attend 1,000 funerals, because you die and like you have rebirths all the time, and so you have to learn to relove and relearn each other constantly, because people's favorite color changes, like their favorite food changes, and if you don't continue to ask each other those questions, then you like
curious.
and you like put them in a box too, and it's like, well, they can change a little bit and like have differences. Oh, I said you never meet the same person twice, not even in the same person.
It's beautiful.
And then it changes to a clip of us now, and people are like, someone's like, you can tell they went from like boyfriend girlfriend to like husband and wife kind of vibes.
It was
and
for sure.
There's like a big
Emotional maturity and the energy
that's
was
what
a huge shift.
Yeah, it shifts drastically.
And I just like, I'm curious to know a little bit more about like when you guys did break up or like go on a break, like what was the process for you when you had to kind of like let that go?
Yeah, I don't even know. I feel like I blacked out like well, it was interesting because the first one so the first one was
The first one.
the first one was one of those things where I was like, nah, I'm gonna see you again. Like it was just like we had spent like
That's like normal for like a
it's
breakup
like,
though. It's like, it's not over.
yeah, I'm gonna see you later. Well, okay, so so the first one, we basically we had just spent like, I have never, heartbreak cry is crazy, and I've never experienced that before. And so, and it was like, it was really hard because we were doing it together, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot. And so that had happened, and then we were like, a few days have passed, and it's just the reality of being like, this isn't gonna work. Like as much as like we've tried everything, like this just like isn't it. And I know this is very confusing to people that don't know the background of things, but there was a lot of different like family dynamics and just like personal stuff going on in his life that made our relationship very, very complicated. But so that first one, I think he literally came over to my house and we basically like had sex, and then was like, okay, like bye, I guess. Like I don't know,
like
what to
makes
do.
it like so much fucking worse.
Yeah, and we're like, okay. So we like had broken up, I guess, and then I didn't know what to do, so I was like, okay, let me just like post a video about it.
Yeah.
Literally like the next day. So I did that, and was honestly fine. But I think in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm gonna see you again, so I didn't really process anything that much. And then we had gotten back together, like, not shortly after that. And then, because we're also, like, best friends. So it makes it hard when it's, like, the person you, like, always talk to, like, always do these different things with.
Is it fun? Okay, cool.
And so, yeah. So then, and then the second one, we actually, the last time we saw each other was on our 1 year. So we knew we were going to split up again. Again, same problems. If you don't take care of them, they come right back up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was really hard because we went to dinner and he was like, I don't want everything that's happened to like take our 1 year from us, basically. So we went to dinner knowing that we were going to be apart, which was hard. And then after that, I think we had lasted, I want to say a few weeks,
Wow.
month, something like that. And again, it's just like you just are so used to living life with that person that we like just came back together a little bit. And then the third time was when he had left to go to Mauritius for a month. And if people probably don't know where that is, but it's like an island next to Madagascar. Is the 12-hour time difference.
Craziness.
He was there taking care of a lot of things with his family.
And that feels like a real breakup
And
because
that
like, there's no connection. You're not talking to them every day.
Well, and that's where it was like we were trying to make it work. And it kind of comes back to the whole sharing the percentage thing with each other. But then like when you feel like you're taking on the percentage for a really long time, it gets very difficult to like have someone refilling your cup. And that was also a lot of me reflecting, realizing like I need other people to also fill my cup. Like I need to also nurture like other relationships a little bit too. That doesn't have to take away from ours, but also to make sure I'm not only doing that and then it's healthy for me to have other things.
Absolutely.
Which is why I started getting like, not exactly why, but one of the reasons I started getting my Pilates certification and like just like trying to find like new like hobbies and things, because honestly I had way too much time on my hands with what I do. I have like a lot of flexibility, and I think it put our relationship on like the center, and I didn't give him space to process what was happening in the first place. We both had so many, and we've talked about like so many different things of what we both could have done better. He was gone, we had met back up when he came back, and still we're like we still shouldn't be together essentially. And so we're apart for I want to say like 2-ish months.
It's crazy.
And then we ran into each other at Equinox. And we ran into each other at the gym, and then things just kind of fell back in the correct spot. And I was like, I just like want to go on dates. Like I'll go on dates with you. So we just started with going on like simple dates, nothing crazy. And then eventually just started dating again, and things worked out where like a lot of his family stuff had been like more so taken care of. Like a lot of his different, not health things, but different, he had obviously through everything he had been through, he had a lot of like stuff going on that he needed to work through and just like be able to process for himself. And so he had time to do that, and it's been amazing ever since. Yeah.
Do you think that because you both had like the time, the proper time to maybe heal some stuff and like focus on your own shit and get yourself right before you come back together, like that was kind of the answer? And it seems like the third breakup, you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like you kind of surrendered.
Yes, I made peace with the fact of being like, I'm actually okay if this doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I think that's the key.
And that's where it is. And like,
key.
that's not supposed to, and I think people are like, oh, it's a dig. It's not a dig at all. It's just being like, if this works out, amazing. But also I'm like, if it doesn't, like, I'm good. And it was coming to the point of being like, what do you enjoy doing? Like, what do you want to do? What are you working towards? What are your goals? Like all these different things outside of just the relationship. And then once I refound that, I was like, oh, okay, I feel good. And I was able to reflect on all the things that I was like, I was being a little over the top in certain areas or things like that. And then, so yeah, 100% it helped being able to have that space. And I think too, like a lot of guys, like they find love in distance where a lot of girls find love in closeness.
This is super interesting.
Which is like and not always, but it comes down to attachment styles. And he also, I think I had an anxious attachment style. He had a avoidant attachment style, which was also interesting to work through. We both never been in a relationship before, so it was just weird navigating that. And then again, just coming back to communicating, being like, this is what I need from you, and him being like, this is what I need from you, and stuff like that has now made us be able to work through those different things successfully.
Wow, my love. Seriously, like it goes to show that regardless of some challenges in the relationship, like there is a future where like you can work through those challenges
100%.
And become stronger and even separate for a little bit and come back apart. I mean, like, not to put my mom on blast, but like her and my dad were like gonna get married and they had to cancel the wedding. But like,
oh my God,
all this is so normal and natural. And I just want people listening to know that like relationships are a challenge because you're dealing with a completely different person with a completely different background and history, but like they're so freaking rewarding. And like the self-work and the self-growth, I think just like amplifies 100 times more when you get to experience that with another person.
100%. He's also French, so the cultural the cultural difference was a whole nother like element that we were both like,
Yeah. What do you think?
What do we do? I'm like, you do that? I'm like, I do this. Like,
It's kind of fun though.
no, it is super fun. But even small things, like I'd be like,
Spicy.
I ate dinner at like 5:30 growing up.
like
He'd be like,
9.
I ate 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8:39. I'm like, okay, so where do we find the balance?
But
here?
see,
But
you
it's
work through
literally-
it.
Yeah, and so it's like even smaller things like that, where it's like learning a language. Like it's a lot of different. That just adds a
whole nother
aspect and a whole nother level. But it is the coolest thing because as someone that's from Kansas, I'm like,
amazing.
thank God I have a little bit of
the
culture in me.
spiciness.
Yeah, because it's just, and I've learned he has so much life experience in terms of just like everything because he was born in Madagascar, moved to France, and then moved to the US and stuff. And so we both have a lot to learn from each other.
Super cool. And I think that's it. Just like being curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what happens.
And it's just like we both have very strong personalities. Yeah. So
it's hard.
And it's hard, but it's also why things are able to work. Yeah. Well, that's why I told him, I was like, well, I mean, we both agree this. We're both a little crazy. And that's why it works.
But you need crazy.
No, you need crazy. And it's just like, that's just we're both very strong personality types. That's where I was like, he's probably one of the only people that could out dominate me. So I'm like, good.
Good.
That's what I need. That's what I
need to take the back seat sometimes.
No, I do. Like, and it's been the best thing for me to be like, you can just like chill a little bit. And yeah, I still obviously have like all the parts of me that still make me feel like me. Yeah. But it's nice to just be able to like sit back. I'm like, yeah, I'll cook.
I'm so proud of you. Okay, so I want to welcome you to a segment that I like to call Syllabus Steps. So this is like a chance for us to kind of like recap what you shared. And I think for the girlies out there who are either wanting a relationship, wanting to start intentionally dating, or are in a relationship and having like just going through some of the challenges that relationships bring. Like, were there any resources or specific steps or podcasts or books or anything that that helped you on your journey of like becoming stronger for yourself to be a better partner, or even just kind of just to let go of the things that weren't in your control?
Yeah, I feel like honestly, I'm such an experience-based person. I don't do a lot of reading or a lot of podcast listening, but I think being aware of your experiences and taking the time to reflect changes everything, and asking yourself questions. Like, rather than being like, how many books can I read? I'd be like, how many questions can I ask about myself? Like, how curious can you get about every decision and choice that you make? And it will change your life. Like, outside of just relationships, it will give you every answer you've ever been looking for. Because I am a huge believer that anything you need to know, you already know. Like, it is within you. And I guess there is one thing that I have used. It wasn't specifically for like a relationship, but I would do the like subconscious shifting, which is where you would do, there's like a 20-minute meditation. There's a bunch of them, but the one I was using was one called Full Potential by Iris Daily. I just like found it randomly on my For You page in like 2021, something like that. And I started doing that once every day, sometimes twice a day. And my like whole life changed. And so basically you lay down, sit down. It's a meditation. It just brings you up to meet your highest self, and then you ask yourself like you first visualize like what all that stuff looks like, and then you say like what's holding you back, what don't you need in your life, and you're essentially answering all your own questions from your like deepest subconscious. And every like session or things are different. There's no control. You're not supposed to get anything out of it. You might wake up and feel great. You might wake up and like not feel any different. Like, you might not feel good at all. And it's just like you just are kind of there for the experience. And it actually it's amazing. And so that's like a really great tool to start to like learn more about yourself. And then you can also start doing that consciously though. Like, you don't always have to be like in meditation. You can just be like, what would the highest version of myself do? Like, what would the version of me that has this relationship do? Like, and that's your answer to the question. Like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's like, if you want to go out to get a coffee, it's like, would this person do it? Like, what should you spend money on? Would that person do it? Like, things like that, where it's just asking like what that version of anything, if it's a relationship, if it's the person that has the job, like what would that character, that version of you do? And that's your answer.
Kaylin, I love that. And I have a really similar experience. Like, I always say, like, regardless of how hard something might be, especially in my relationship, it's like, regardless of how hard it is right now for me to speak my truth, for me to have this hard conversation with him, like, how can I show up for my future self?
Oh, I love that.
And that like really is the shift to like step into her and kind of like fake it till you make it in a way.
Yes.
Until like you fucking do it and you're like, whoa, I am capable of that.
Yeah. I'm also like, sorry, girl. Can I cuss on here?
You can fucking cuss.
Stop bitching about things you don't communicate.
Yes.
It's crazy. And I'm like,
yes,
I'm calling
I agree.
some of you guys out because it's like the amount of, yeah, but like I want him to read my thoughts. It's a great theory. It is a great theory. And once he gets to know reality. You, he can do it a little bit. But I'm like, if you do not express what you need, you cannot expect them to deliver.
He's not a mind reader.
And you have to know, like, you're coming from two different lives. He also, men are so foreign to women. Women are so foreign to men. We all operate so closely together. But when you're going into a relationship, especially for the first time, you are different creatures.
Yep.
They do not understand your needs. You do not understand their needs. You have to talk to each other. And you cannot be scared to say what it is that you need. If it sounds stupid... Kaylin. Like, if it sounds dumb, if it sounds stupid, and they receive it that way, that is not your man. Like, your man will be open to having the conversations with you and listening to your desires or needs or wants. And that's not to say that yours are always going to be right and that they're always going to be fulfilled, but it's about having the courage to ask and knowing that if they're being rude and mean and not responsive or listening, leave. Like, that's not your person then.
I love this. And, like, I think it's so true. It's like, if we ask ourselves as women, like, do we know what he's thinking about? Fuck no. So it's the same shit, people. We're all human beings. They're not mind readers. They're not magicians. They're not Prince Charming.
They're like the farthest
they're beautiful,
from that.
but like they're not.
They're like, God, if y'all could read minds, this is all good things. You're just not a mind reader.
It's so funny.
It's just ridiculous. I'm like, girls.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm like, yeah, they do things too, but I'm like, wait, also,
yeah.
Don't be dramatic. Yeah. And like, we've all done it. And I'm like,
100%.
And of course, and I know what everyone means. They're like, oh, I wish you would just, I'm like, you have to at least ask him once.
100%.
And be like, this, And so
I agree.
The way that's changed so much. And then they're able to do it. Like, after you ask them. And if they don't do it after you ask, that's a problem.
I agree.
But like, if you don't ever ask,
then you can't
just expect him to do it. No.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question.
Yes.
It's a fill in the blank.
Oh, God.
I know. Regardless of blank, I am blank.
Oh my God, that's such a hard one. Wait, okay. Give me a second.
No, you're good, baby. Take all the time.
Regardless of people's opinions, I am capable of anything.
I love that.
I feel like that's just
That's super powerful, especially just being so vocal on social as well. Yeah. And I bet with the relationship, that's power.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
You're freaking incredible. Always here for you, rooting for you. I cannot wait to put this out there.
Excited.
Like, girls need to hear this. And guys, of course.